All right, we're back again. We're on Unit 2, Day 6. We got evaluating algebraic expressions as the topic. We're going to start with some vocabulary terms. So let's get out a sheet of paper or your notes, whatever you were given these notes, so you can write them on this if you want to, or you can just do it on a loose leaf sheet of paper. So we're going to start out with what a numerical expression means. This means that you have these terms or these pieces, okay? And when you see the term expression, that means that you're not dealing with an equal sign. You're only dealing with numbers or variables. And in this case, we're only dealing with numbers because it's numerical. If there's variables, which means that there's letters, that's called algebraic. But there's never an equal sign when we're talking about expressions. If it says equation, that's when we're dealing with equal sign. But because we're dealing with an expression, we're just dealing with numbers that are separated by plus or minus signs or addition, subtraction signs. So a numerical expression are terms separated by addition or subtraction signs without variables. So that's a numerical expression. And then we're going to do an example in just a second, but I want to do algebraic next. Algebraic is the same. These are terms separated by addition or subtraction signs with variables. So those are the letters. So let's do an example of each. So if we look on the right here, hold on, let me make sure that this is all good, by the way. Looks like we're doing okay. Okay. All right, so an example would be -2 plus 5 minus 7. That would be an example of a numerical expression. There's no equal sign, and there's only numbers. The next one, if you have some variables in here, let's say -2x plus 5 minus 7y, that would be considered a algebraic expression because you have a variable or two in there. As we can see, we have an x and a y. So let's go on to the next part. So when we're talking about substituting, we're talking about an algebraic expression. So this is when we're going to replace one of those letters in our algebraic expressions. So to replace a variable with a number. So that's all we're going to do when we substitute, is just replace. So if we had this example up above, if it told you if x is 3 and y is -2, then we're going to substitute. So -2, x is 3. So we're just substituting the numbers with parentheses, as you can see, into that algebraic expression from above. And then to evaluate, that's our last term. This just means to simplify after substituting. So this is actually asking you to finish the problem. So it's saying to simplify after we substitute. So now if we were to simplify this example up above, that'd be -6 plus 5 plus 14 because two negatives give me a positive. And then the negative 6 plus 5 gives me negative 1. Plus 14 would give me 13 in the end. So that's finishing the problem. So that's what evaluating is. So let's go over this one more time. For our definitions that we have expressions, numerical or algebraic. Numerical means we just have numbers. Algebraic means that there's letters involved. Expression means there's no equal sign. Equation means that there's an equal sign. To substitute just means replacing a variable with a number. And then to evaluate means you're going to substitute and finish the problem. There's a couple of things here that these dots are the important parts. The first one is when you noticed when we substituted. So when substituting, use a parenthesis around the number that we substitute in. So if you noticed up above, I used a parenthesis. And the reason why we use parentheses, because then we know that if there's something squared, we know that we have to include it twice. If there's a parenthesis next to a number, that means multiplication as well. So those are the main parts. And then yesterday we talked about absolute value. I want to make sure that you guys remember how to get to it. This in your calculator, we're going to hit the math button. And then we're going to arrow to the right. And then we're going to choose number. So NUM, sorry. Oopsie, NUM. Then we're going to choose ABS for absolute value. So those are going to be our steps for getting absolute value on our calculator. And there's one tricky question that I want to make sure that we understand. If we have negative x squared versus this parenthesis of negative x squared, those are two different questions. If you plugged in, let's say we plug in 5 for x. The first one is negative 5 squared. The second one is negative 5 in parentheses squared. So now the negative sign is not squared in the first one, only the 5 is. So it would look like this, a negative sign, and there's two 5s. The second one, though, has the negative sign inside the parentheses, so that means you include it when you square that number as well. So you got to write it twice. So the first answer will actually be different than the second answer. This second one would give me a negative times a negative, which is a positive 25. And this first one would give me just a negative 25. So that's a big one that kids struggle on the quiz and the test. So I want to make sure that you understood the difference if you have parentheses or if you don't. Don't include the negative. If you don't have parentheses, include the negative twice if you do. So let's do some evaluating for the next 8 problems for the front and the back. So we have this example where it gives us up here what x, y, and z stand for. So y is 3, x is negative 4, so I'm going to put a parenthesis there since it's next to a number, and it says divided by 6. So if we were to follow my order of operations, we're supposed to do everything that's inside the parenthesis first, or you can just plug all this into your calculator from left to right, and it should give you the same answer. So if we do my order of operations, we're supposed to do my multiplication or division from left to right. So that would be negative 12 when we do 3 times negative 4. And if we continue on our multiplication division from left to right, we run into division. So now that would be negative 12 divided by 6, which would be negative 2. So now we have 3 plus negative 2. And then when we add 3 plus negative 2 together, we get 1. So if you punched all this into your calculator, you should have gotten 2. 2 times 1. This next one has the absolute value. So this is where you got to go into your calculator, you hit math, and then arrow to the right and hit NUM, and then select ABS for absolute value. I'm going to do it by hand though. So Z is -5 minus, we got Y is 3. We have absolute value bars around it, and then that answer is squared. So according to my order of operations, I'm supposed to do what's inside the grouping symbol first. So -5 minus 3 is -8. If you punch that in your calculator, that absolute value is asking you for the distance that number is away from 0, and distance is always positive. So that becomes +8. And +8 times +8, now that we got rid of the absolute value bars, would become 64. So that's our answer for number 2. And the last 6 on the back, if you want to pause and try these yourself, see if you can substitute and then follow the order of operations or plug them in your calculator, you can do that. Or you can just follow along. It's up to you. All right, so this next one, Z is -5, X is -4, and Y is 3. So now we have 2 times -5. Oh, you know what? Messed that up. According to our order of operations, we're supposed to do exponents first. So we'll do that one first. 3 squared gives me 3 times 3, which is 9. And then we're supposed to do multiplication division from left to right. So we can multiply these two in the front here, and that gives me -10. We can multiply these two in the middle if I'm moving from left to right, which gives me 16. And then I'm supposed to do addition or subtraction from left to right. So I do -10 plus 16, that gives me 6, and 6 plus 9 is 15. So that should be our answer for number 3, if you went ahead. I'm just going to move vertical here. So I'm going to go to number 5 next, and then we'll do the next row. So for number 2, X is -4, Y is 3, Z is -5, plus Y is 3. So I put this Z in parentheses for the -5. That way I can see there's 2 minus signs in a row there. So if I were to deal with that first, because that's like multiplying by a negative out front, that would become +5 in the parentheses, because 2 negatives equal a positive when they're right next to each other. And then I'm supposed to do addition, subtraction inside the parentheses first, because I'm supposed to do the grouping symbol all the way down. So I'm going to do this addition, so that'd be -1. And then I'm supposed to finish the parenthesis, so that'd be 4. And then 2 times 4 is 8. And then 8 plus 3 would give me 11. So if you punch that in your calculator, that's what you should have gotten with all the steps. The next one just has a bunch of multiplications. So this is -4, Y is 3, and Z is -5. And I'm supposed to do the exponents first according to my order of operations. So I'm going to do the -5 times -5 is 25. And then I'm supposed to do my multiplication from left to right. So that'd be -12. And then -12 times 25, I believe, is a negative, because it's a negative times a positive. And I believe that's 300 when you punch that in. And then the last vertical column here, number 4, X is -4, Y is 3. These brackets are the same thing as parentheses, so treat them the same. So we're supposed to do the innermost parentheses first. So we're going to do this -4 plus 3, which is -1. And then 10 plus -1, or 10 minus 1, would give me 9 in the end. So that'd be my answer for 4. Last 2. That's divided by. So according to my order of operations, I'm supposed to grouping symbols first, there are none, then exponents, and then multiply, divide from left to right. So if I'm moving from left to right, I do this multiplication first. So I would get -4 plus -30 divided by 3. So if I continue on, I'm supposed to do that division next. Negative 30 divided by 3 is negative 10. And then if I add negative 4 and negative 10 together, I believe that gives me negative 14. And if you punch all that in your calculator, that's what you should get. And the last one is a fraction. So I'm going to do the whole top. So that's 16 times x, and x is negative 4 divided by 2. All right, so the top, I'm supposed to go left to right according to the order of operations because I only see a multiply and divide. So that'd be 3264, so that's negative 64. Divided by 2 is negative 32. And the bottom, that's negative y, so y is 3 squared. So that's the one where the negative is inside, so you're supposed to write the negative 3 times the negative 3. Two negatives would equal a positive, so that would be negative 32 over 9. And then we try to simplify that. So we punch that into my calculator, we press enter, negative 32 divided by 9. I think it just gives me a decimal. And I hit math frac, press enter, and it gives me right back to this fraction. So if you